Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Outdoor Adventures on Brownfield. I'm Brent Barnett. This week's show is brought to you by Beck's Hybrids. At Beck's, we are and will remain farmers at heart. Joining us on the show this week, Iowa State Auditor Rob Sand, who's been on the show several times the past couple of years. Rob, thanks for coming back on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brent. Was a little bit under the weather, but pretty well recovered now. So can't complain.
Just in time for the rut, too. But I don't know if you're going to be able to go out there, because the reason we asked you to come back on here today, you killed the buck of a lifetime, harvested the buck of a lifetime, it sounds like. And I'm excited to have you share this story with the Brownfield listeners. And let's just kind of dive right into it, Rob. I was on social media here several weeks back, and sure enough, a post from Trophy Bucks of Iowa pops up on my page saying that Rob Sand has harvested a 200-plus inch whitetail. And I did a double take, and sure enough, there you are with this giant, non-typical looking buck. Never seen anything like it. Just kind of dive in. Tell us how this happened, man.
Sure. And I'll tell you, I'm actually thinking I'm going to get my boys out for the rut for the first time for both of them, because this was in the urban program in Des Moines. So I've been in the urban program for, I think, 13 years. There's an incentive program. So you shoot 3 antlerless deer. That gets you into the lottery to win an urban buck tag for the next year, which I've made the lottery, I think, every year. You don't always get a tag, but most of the people do, because that's just how many are allotted and how many are participating. But this was in the city of Des Moines. A guy I had been at a party with once, maybe more than 10 years ago, sent me a picture of this deer in velvet, and I about passed out. This is like in Des Moines. Like, it's not by the airport. It's not far from a big park, but this guy's place was sort of, pretty much a postage stamp of a property. It was in an area with a lot of single family houses with, decent sized lots, but not, it wasn't it wasn't a place where the houses are 100 yards apart or anything like that. And so I went to work. In the urban bow hunting program, you can hunt on private property. So I went from where he was, and I use OnX. So I pulled out OnX and started looking at topography and looking at tree cover and trying to figure out if that buck was there at this guy's house one day, where might he hang out? And I would go knock on people's doors, tell them about the urban bow hunting program and ask them for permission to hunt. Told them I was looking for one specific buck, and that if I filled the tag, I'd be out of their backyard and out of their hair. Set up cameras where I got permission to do that. Tried to figure out if I could sort of zero in on what his home turf was. Had close to 50-50. If slightly more people tell me yes than tell me no, but if somebody says no, we don't want you to do that. You just say thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Sorry to bother you, and you move on to the next place. And I put a good chunk of time into that, to the point where when the urban season opened, which opens a little bit earlier, it was September 20th, I had at that point 3 properties where I had him on a camera in shooting hours. And so I felt really good about having an idea of where he was and getting a chance for him. And for, look, you've had me on before. My dad taught me how to bow hunt. He taught me, what to look for in the woods, how to find sign. So this is something I've loved doing my whole life. And I had actually decided a couple years back, I have shot, I think, 8 Pope and Young bucks, but never a booner. And so the last buck I tagged was 2022, and I've let a couple of good ones pass since then, because I'm trying to get to the point where, I might be able to tag a booner. And that wasn't in the urban program, but it turns out that it worked anyways. That karma worked anyways. So I go out, let's see, opening day is Saturday. I hunt Saturday. I sit in the morning. I sit in the evening. Sunday, I wake up, and I think it was that day, but it was real. I'm pretty sure it was real on. 2 minutes into hunting light, here's a huge buck. But the funny thing is, there had been another one that was in his bachelor group with a similar rack, the same drop tine, on one of the same drop tines on the same side, but substantially smaller spread, substantially shorter G1s and 2s and 3s. And so I wasn't certain. And I'm not the type to, draw and shoot unless I'm certain. So I waited. It was barely light enough to see, barely legal light. And by the time it got a little bit brighter, I got to the point where I was able to draw on him, but I didn't really have a shot. And so I let it off. And I thought he went into a thicket where he'd have to come past me to get out. And I was wrong about that. Just hadn't, this is one of the interesting things about the urban hunt. You never know what you've got, because if you can't go on a property, you can't go on a property. So he's in this thicket that I think he's got to come back my way, but I don't actually know what's on the other side because I've never been over there. Turns out he had an escape route that worked for him just fine that day. And I had one other encounter with him setting up a stand on another property where I'm, moving up and down the tree, and then there he is. So I freeze. I haven't got my bow with me. I'm able to stay undetected, and he slowly wanders off. So that was about as good as you can get. The first 2 times I saw him, major buck fever, which is not typical. I'm usually pretty cool, but this guy's just off the charts. And then finally, and I hunted, I had 2 or 3 weekends where every chunk of time that I had, I was out there. And it was hot. He was moving in hot weather, Brent. That was one of the most surprising pieces. I mean, I had him on camera on daylight, 85 degrees out, and he's moving around.
Wow.
Yeah. And this, I got to tell you too, this whole experience really changed my perspective on early season. I've always been like a later season, wait till the temperatures go down, they're moving more. But with this guy, I was like, well, I know enough about where he is, and I want to put my tag on him. But I figured I only had so many opportunities ahead of me before somebody else might do it. And boy, it's nice to not sit and shiver. I really appreciated that, and you really can, even though they're not moving a lot, they're still moving if you can figure out where they are. So that was a fun piece of this too. So I finally go out there, and an opportunity. I sit in the morning. I take a break for lunch. I go out again afternoon. It rains in the morning. It rains in the afternoon. I take a break because the rain gets so heavy that I'm getting soaked through my rain gear. I just go sit in my truck, which, in the urban program, it's 30 yards from my tree. So that's easy enough. And the rain lightens up maybe an hour or so before hunting light ends. And so I say, all right, it lightened up. If he's going to move, he's going to move now. So I climb back into my tree, and I don't know how long after that, there's a buck behind a tree. I get my binocs out. It's him. Heart starts beating a little bit faster. And I get ready. He steps out from behind a tree. I draw, and with my bow drawn, my foot slips off of the climbing stick I'm on. I've been a saddle hunter for a few years, and my line was pretty tight, so I didn't drop, but I swung around the tree at full draw.
Oh man!
Had to let down. It's still raining. I mean, it lightened up, but it's still raining. So the rain covers the noise. It's not terribly noisy. Again, my line was pretty tight, holding me there. I steady myself. I get back on, and I'm imagining. I'm so upset with myself. I'm like, I'm going to turn around and I'm not going to see him anywhere. He's going to be gone. Now he'll know he busted me. I can't hunt here anymore. I'm going to be down to one spot where I'm going to be able to find him. and I get steadied again. I look over and he's in the exact same spot, just hanging out. So he eventually walks out, steps out from behind a tree, quartering away shot, and that was it.
What an experience. When you get down and, you assess the hit and the blood trail and you get up to him, what was the feeling like walking up to a 200+ inch buck? Because I've never done that before.
Yeah. Oh, and I never thought I would. I actually, he was quartering away pretty hard. It was more than or how would you think about, I'm trying to think of how to say this. You think about a broadside shot and then you think about a quartering away shot, and he was past halfway quartered away.
Yeah.
And so I felt good about my hit, but I wasn't 100% certain that he had gone down. Again, the same rain that's covering the noise from me slipping is covering any noise he's making after he's gone. And this is, it's by the time I shoot, it's real close to the end of hunting light. And so I don't see him go down. I don't hear him go down. And I'm just thinking, man, we're in the neighborhood here. If I climb down too early and I bump this guy and he goes running around, who knows what kind of trouble we're going to have. And they always ask us to be real careful with that stuff in the urban program, because some people want us there and they're like, these deer are eating my hostas, go get them, And other people don't feel that way. They think of these deer as their, like their friends. And so, you want to be careful about that. So I'm not the most patient person when I put an arrow in, but I did a better job than usual of waiting in this case. But he went, I would say 50 yards. That was it. And just at that point, when I got up to him, pouring rain again, just couldn't believe it. I mean, there he was, right? I mean, this is the guy I'd been tracking for a couple of months. Had so many pictures of him, had seen him twice in person, had really put so much spare time. I mean, that's literally why I'm sick, is I exercised less and I slept less while hunting for this guy, and really kind of ran myself ragged on it. Just really, really fortunate to have the opportunity, because like you said, it's kind of a once in a lifetime buck, and that's if you've got a lucky lifetime.
Rob, last question for you here. What do you say to other people that are considering hunting urban zones? Because that's something that maybe not a lot of people have ever experienced.
Oh yeah, look, it's not that dissimilar from hunting statewide. You got a few more variables. I've had situations where I'm hunting and there's a dog loose, and a dog literally chases away a buck. You could have people walking around. A lot of folks do this in the parks. I have always stuck to private property, but that doesn't mean that a neighbor's not mowing. It doesn't mean that a neighbor's not out walking their dog or playing fetch with their dog. The deer, when a deer notices something, so the rule is, at least in Des Moines, you got to shoot from an elevated position, and that's a good safety rule. You have to take a marksmanship test every year. They want to make sure you're still proficient with your bow every year. But they require you to shoot from an elevated position. They want the arrow, if you miss, going into the ground. And I think that's a good rule to have. But that also means that these deer, even if they're accustomed to seeing people out in their yards, if they figure out that there's something going on up in that tree, 15, 20, 25 feet up, they're still going to be just as freaked out. So you add those variables, and the hunting is not that different. It feels a little bit different, but those deer, once they're in bow range, they're not any different from any deer anywhere else. And boy, I'm not the only guy that really enjoys it, because it really shortens the commute for having the opportunity to get up into a tree. So if you're interested in trying it, you ought to. It's a lot of fun, and it's an easy way to get time in the woods, even if it's a smaller woods.
Well, for anyone that's watched Seek One, I mean, this pretty much makes you the Lee Ellis of Iowa now, right? Because killing the big city bucks.
I won't. I will not claim that title.
Okay. Okay.
You can offer it, and I'll just sit here and say, "Hey, I had a great hunt. It's a fun thing to do, and yeah, those guys are doing good work, preaching this kind of a gospel, and happy to share my experience with people about it too."
Congratulations again. And Rob, good to have you back here on the Outdoor Adventures podcast. Hope we can catch up again sometime soon.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Brett. Good talking to you.
Again, State Auditor for Iowa, Rob Sand here on Outdoor Adventures. I'm Brent Barnett, and have a great weekend and get outdoors.